some group some years ago, and I was blackballed because I said it. I said, if you cannot preach Jesus and preach the gospel in Somalia as you preach it in America, it is not gospel. Oh God, we have made it look like that for years and years that only God that we serve is a Mercedes-Benz driving God. And we've made it look like he is a suburbanite. He cannot be an inner city God, because if you don't have the wealth, the health, and the prosperity, then you cannot have a relationship with God. I want to tell everybody around the world, you don't have to be rich to know God. You don't have to be poor to know God. You don't have to be out to know God, but you don't have to be in to know God. He's for those that are on the in. He's for those that are on the out. He's for those that drive Mercedes. He's for those who take the bus. It does not matter what you wear, because we made him out to be a Louboutin God, or a Givenchy God, or a Gucci God, or a Mercedes God, or a Rolls Royce God. But I got news for you. I can walk into my one-room house with the bathroom and the everything in the same place and serve up some praise and feel the presence of the mighty God stepping into my house. Oh, I feel it in here. That's why I praise him. That's why I lift him up. That's why I glorify. For there's only one name given among men whereby we must be saved. And the last time I checked, it was Jesus. Somebody holler Jesus. Don't get me started. So he cannot be trapped by culture because of this inner principle of identity, and because he transcends the many alterations in human culture and even in self-understanding. He's not limited to your neighborhood, and he's not limited to my neighborhood, because Christianity does not consciously call any or recognizes any situation as normative. When he came into the world, it was upside down. Wherever he went, it was upside down. The rich were upside down. The poor were upside down. The religious folk were upside down. And that's why he was held in a box. That's why he couldn't do many mighty works in Nazareth, because people couldn't understand who he was because of how he operated. I feel the Spirit of God. Many times we get carried away. My ex-wife and I were driving down the street when we were married, and the kids were in the back, and they kept saying, turn the station, Daddy, turn the station, because they wanted to hear their music. Turn the station. When Marvin Gaye came on, my oldest son said, fine. I said, yeah, that's where I want to be, right there. So that's cool. But then the rap came on, and my ex, a little bit more traditional, she said, turn that mess off. And they said, all right. They said, we'll try something else. And then all of a sudden it came over to Save the Last Dance for me. And she said, hold it right there. Because I remember in my prom, they sang that song and my bow came up because they saved the last dance. Everybody has their music because it belongs to your age. When it comes to Jesus, we hymned him, then they gospeled him, now they're rapping him. The hymners can't say to the rappers that you don't know him. You know him in your hymn, I know him in my rap. And if you can hymn him, I can rap him, because he's my God. I feel something helping me here. And so now he adopts and he accommodates himself to any situation in order to transform it from within. He adopts himself and he distorts himself, and he becomes that servant who can catch you wherever you are. If you're in here today looking for him, I don't care where you were last night. He can adopt adapt himself. He can transform you from the inside out. You cannot be so bad that you make him inefficacious, because he's got the efficacious power to transform you from the inside. He can get into tight spaces and widen them and make you broader than you ever thought you could be. He can get into low self-esteem, and before he gets done with it, it becomes high self-esteem. He can get into your trouble, and before he comes out of it, trouble don't last. I heard somebody singing that. And so there are no cathedrals then of denominational rigidity. There are no monuments of philosophical frigidity. There are no headstones of personal morbidity, which picks and chooses under what circumstance God ought to speak and move. There is nobody around you who determines how much revelation he gives you. And there is nobody around you who determines when he'll bless you. I need some help. Come on. I need some help. Come on. I need some help. I ain't got to politic my way. I ain't got to try to make you feel good about me. All I need to do is serve him. Look the other way if you will. I ain't got to try to adopt your views in every single matter. I ain't got to share your opinions in every single matter in order to get to the front. I ain't got to deal with your church politics, and I ain't got to join your clique, because whenever he gets ready, everybody turn around. The first will be last, and the last shall be first. Thank you very much. And so you can't pick and choose. We pamper and we protect. We promulgate our denominational difference to the exclusion of others. We dominate and we argue and we antagonize. We yes and articulate our philosophical differences to the exclusion of others. So we exclude, we eliminate, and we often attempt to eradicate and exterminate those who don't fit our views. But what we ought to be doing is, instead of pushing you away, I ought to be fellowshipping so that I can understand how you see Jesus, because we all don't see him the same way, but we need each other so that we can paint a broad picture with all saints. I feel like preaching in here, Pat. I feel like giving God the glory. Oh God, I feel it here. But if he is only one God, then he's my God too. And even the folk you don't want around you, he's their God too, because he's the only one of his kind. I'm almost through. And he paid the price. Give somebody a high five for the second time and say, neighbor, what price did you pay for me to be here? You didn't shed your blood for me to be an overcomer. You didn't shed your blood to take away my sins. He was in the form of God, but he thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation. You so lofty that you don't want to shake hands with certain people. You so lofty that you don't want to deal with certain kind of folk. You so lofty that you don't want certain folk in the choir, and you don't want certain folk in your pews. You so lofty, yet he was in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but put on himself the form of a servant and came down into my nasty world. I feel like preaching here. It seemed like he was so disguised, born in a manger, came to his own received him not, would not even deal with him. He was stripped of who he was, and God made him sin in order to deal with me. Touch your neighbor for the third time and say, I got a right to praise him. I got a a right to lift him up. I got a right to give him glory, because nobody treats me like Jesus treated me. God made him a sin, but he didn't make him a sinner, because had he sinned, it would have disqualified him. He couldn't be my lamb slain from the foundation of the world, because the wages of sin is death, but there's a substitute. Can I preach like I feel it? They're about to do me in, and Jesus walked up and said, leave him alone, take me instead. I feel like giving him glory, because he didn't make him a sinner, because he didn't make him a particular kind of sinner. He made him sin. Can I tell you this? Sin is common to all cultures. It's common to all ages, to all generations, to all people, to all denominations, to all organizations. It knows no color. It knows no wealth. It deals with everybody. Can I tell you the truth? It deals with your young. It'll deal with your old. So God said, I'm going to make him sin, my most obnoxious distaste. I'm going to make him my worst association, the scourge of the universe, the undesirable toleration, the object of my wrath. When I look at him, I'm going to take out more on him than they took out on the flood. I'm going to take more out on him than they took out in Sodom and Gomorrah. I'm going to take more out on him than the Israelites crossing the wilderness. I'm going to get my satisfaction out of taking it out on Jesus. And that's why I can walk in here with all the burdens on my back and say, Lord, I love you. Lord, I thank you. Can I preach like I feel it? He made him a lie, but not a liar. He made him disobedience, but not the disobedient. He made him jealousy, but not the jealous. He made him envy, but he wasn't envious. He made him robbery, but not the robber. He made him hatred, but not the hater. He made him wife abusing, but not the abuser. He made him husband abusing, but not the abuser. He made him fear, but not the fearful. He made him drug addiction, but he wasn't no junkie. He made him prostitution, but he wasn't a prostitute. He made him adultery, but not the adulterer. He made him fornication, but not the fornicator. He made him homosexuality, but not the homosexual. He made him lesbianism, but not the lesbian. He made him witchcraft, but he wasn't no witch. He made him sorcery, but he wasn't a sorcerer. And that's the price he paid for me to praise him, for me to lift him up. Then God forsook him, and he went to the grave for God. He went to hell for me, and he snatched the keys. What a price he paid to dwell among us. Touch your neighbor. Said I had to reach over God to touch you. He's just that close, and I dare you to call him. I dare you